Tell me a little bit. Somebody can tell me a little bit about your madrasa, because where you've been inspired from, and what you do at the Essex Shia madrasa that you all go to. Can anybody tell me a little bit about your madrasa?
It was established 5 to 6 years ago. It was from a very small community, literally just 2, 3 families. And then, but mashallah, it's grown to now, it's 60, 70 students now. So it's grown massively, and the community as well. But thankfully it stayed very tight, and we're all good groups of friends.
Okay. And how many people go to the madrasa in Essex?
I think it's a surplus of about 60 people.
Students, 60 students.
Student-wise. And I think staffing-wise it's about 15, 20 people.
Is it? How do you find the teaching? Is it interesting?
I think it's due to the fact that, as opposed to other madrasas, because having before the inception of Essex, I went to Stanmore, and the classes are much bigger there, as in teacher to student ratio, and being in a much smaller student to teacher ratio, I found that it's much easier to A, get your point across, and B, ask anything that you wouldn't necessarily be able to ask if it's like not linked to the syllabus, because I think you've got a lot. It's a much more personal environment. So I know Imran Bey out of Madressa as well, so I haven't got a problem asking him a matter in a controversial issue, for example. But in regards to this video, we did, before we came up with this idea of let's make a video, we were discussing matters like controversial forms of media, and I feel that I wouldn't necessarily be able to ask such questions in a much larger environment, like Stanmore.
Yeah, since it's so tight-knitted, I think students are more open to ask questions about their teacher, and the one-to-one relationship between teacher and student, I think, because I've been to previous madrasas before this was established, I think it's a lot better in this, to the sense that you actually learn a lot more because of the one-to-one communication. So the teacher spends more time with you, and you get better educated in that sense.
Feel a lot more comfortable as well.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, this is really important to young people. I'm assuming the ability to ask questions, to be confident enough, and to feel that somebody's going to take your questions seriously. Is that something that you had trouble with at any time before this madrasa? Because you sound like you're having a great experience here.
Yeah, definitely.
But in the past, did you have trouble with older people taking you seriously with questions that you had?
I think it was more a problem of getting your voice heard, because in a sea of 30 people, all who are creating a ruckus, it becomes quite difficult to launch that one serious question which the teacher's going to hear for 45 minutes, because odds are he's going to just think you're fooling about with him. So, but being in, and also there's that thing about personal image, that you don't want to sound stupid in front of your friends, but the fact that we all know each other so well, like Daniel said, such a tight-knitted group, that risk is almost immediately eliminated. Yeah, we might make a couple of jokes with each other, like that week. That will go away, and we will still remember. We won't call him stupid for the rest of the year.
Sure, sure. I mean, would you describe your experience at the madrasas as fun?
Definitely.
I mean, what do you do there? What are the things, other than learning, are there other activities?
Well, as a graduate, we have 4 sections, I guess. The first one's normally taken by a graduate class, in which we get taught theology and topics like that, more advanced stuff. And for the other 3, we're normally helping out, I guess, helping around wherever's needed.
We're more volunteers now as well. Since we've graduated, we have our class, then we help out with the other teachers as well, kind of like assistants, so they want our points of view, since we only learned the same things that the other students are getting taught a few years ago. So it's more fresh in our minds, I guess, as well.
I think this brings me back to young people again, and views from the young people, because quite often the older generation can get stuck in not understanding, and there can be a communication gap. Do you feel that in the Essex community you've broken down that communication barrier, and the communication between the older generation and your generation is good? Anybody? Do you have enough knowledge about your other friends and the way they relate to their parents? Do you think there is a communication gap between first generation and second generation Muslims in this country, perhaps?
Not as much as I think people say. I mean, personally, I can communicate with adults. It's quite easy, to be honest. And I think the whole communication gap is more, I don't know, maybe a language barrier thing.
Okay, tell me about language. Do you all speak any other languages?
Or,
We speak
I could
Urdu.
speak
I
Urdu.
think
Not
Urdu?
as
I
fluent,
choose not to.
Yeah, not as
To be
fluent
fair.
Urdu as I hope
Yeah.
I can.
As my
So-
parents hope I can.
So most of you speak
English
some-
is our predominant
And a
language.
bit of Gujarati.
a bit of Gujarati,
And Farsi and Dari.
a bit of Farsi and Dari as well. But,
A wide
but
range.
would you describe yourself as fluent? You can understand, but can you speak as fluently as you'd like?
Absolutely
you?
not.
In
No.
our own languages.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can speak fluently, but the vocab and the writing, which we've forgotten.
Yeah. Okay. So English is your main
Yeah.
language then, I guess.
Yeah.
But do you think that we can do more to help people to have that bilingual or have your original mother tongue, if you like, taught? Do you think there should be more done about that? Would you like that?
I think it's good that if you know more than one language, especially your mother tongue. I mean, I wish I knew Urdu. I can understand it perfectly fine. It's just that the speaking of it, I'm such a bad linguist. I mean, even in school in German and French,
Bad
I
German as
couldn't
well.
do it for my life.
Mm.
So if I knew, it would definitely be an advantage. I mean, I just wish I did.
It's just a big debate. It's one of those things about communication barriers that one worries about in the community. But that's an interesting mini survey. Thanks for that. We're live on air. But here we go. I mean, I think the thing that really also concerns me is when you get these communication barriers, also with mainstream society, it can happen over your faith. It can happen over your culture, and the cartoons that you responded to, the Innocence of Muslims, they kind of don't help. These things are stereotypes which are being layer upon layer put across to mainstream communities. So why do you think it is, firstly, that the Prophet Muhammad has been ridiculed by wider media and Western society in general seems to have such a negative perception of Islam and the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him? Why do you think that is?
Because the media shows Islam as terrorists, so people think whatever the media says is true. But I think, my own personal view, that whatever the media shows about Muslims is untrue. Like, they're not all Muslims because of the 9/11 bombings and the other bombings that whichever happened.
It's more of a misinterpretation, I think. So I know it's been said loads of times before, but it's such a small minority. I mean, there's so many Muslims around the world, and then these such events happen and get into the media. The generalizations made, I think, is the main issue. So it's the whole misinterpretation.
It's lack of understanding, lack of education. So
Yeah.
your video could be one of those tools
Yeah,
that
exactly.
help
Inshallah,
Like,
people
we
to-
meet people, like in my school as well, they all know that not every Muslim, or very, very few, are like the ones that are shown in, say, these bombings and 9/11, 7/7 bombings.
So you go to a grammar school, so I assume that the
I
kids
do.
are pretty well versed with maybe the global affairs, different issues.
But even in, say, for example, I also have clubs outside of school, like tennis and table tennis. I meet people from different backgrounds, different schools. Even they do realise that after meeting me and other Muslims that they know, that it's really not all doom and gloom for the religion in that sense.
So let's go round on what your experiences are with non-Muslims in Britain and their attitudes towards you.
Well, I can't say I've been subject of any dire negative views, but I do tend to notice every now and then the odd person just seeming to sort of shy away at the prospect of the fact that I'm either Pakistani or that I'm Muslim, etc. But it does reassure me when I'm like in school, in a grammar school with all my friends. They'll acknowledge me for who I am rather than the fact that I'm a Muslim, therefore they don't make that sort of generalization, which makes me feel a lot more comfortable. So much there's not going to be any problems just because of something I believe.
Okay. And going round the room.
Well, despite the fact that they are well versed and most of them are well educated, there are the few ignorant few, which I guess many would believe the media and some of the untrue accusations. But thankfully, I've been blessed with a good group of friends, and they're all very understanding. And I've got a few Muslim friends as well, so that's always good because they tighten your faith, I guess. And
Yeah, I think an interesting point earlier that was said was that it's about knowing people. So you as an individual, once they know you as a Muslim and you demonstrate good manners, good etiquette, and just good behavior and present Islam in a way as a model example yourself, that's perhaps in itself the best advert for changing people's minds. Do you feel conscious about the fact that as a Muslim you have to behave in that way and perhaps prove to a lot of these other people that actually, you know, Islam isn't the kind of faith that is being portrayed often in the media?
Yeah, because as you get older and you go to like the sixth forms and the universities, you get more questions thrown at you by non-believers because of what they've seen in the media. And it gets more harder because you have to answer these questions, and it shows Muslims as a bad way and lack of understanding.
Well, that's interesting because we're talking now about almost being representatives. And I know the video is one way of manifesting and projecting who we are, but as individuals, have you come across experiences where, you know, you feel like you're having to be an ambassador, and is that too much for a young person?
Well, I think we should all be taught basic manners and just how to act in the wider society. So I mean, that's what the Prophet did. So we should, and it's innate in our nature. So it's not something alien to us. So I think we should all just be acting properly and with good manners.
Okay. And how do you feel about being a Muslim?
How do I feel about being a Muslim? Well, I'm proud of it because I believe that it is, after a lot of research and everything, it is the correct faith for me. And in the wider society, I guess, it's not an issue anymore. I mean, I think the question would be more relevant to say girls who wear hijabs and stuff, because that's a bit different to what Western people wear and their society culture there. But in my sense, there's not much separate integration needed. I mean, I don't eat non-halal food, but that's as far as it goes with my friends. So we go to a restaurant, I'll get the vegetarian option. That's really as far as it goes between integrating. Otherwise, it's perfectly fine.
So this idea constantly in the British media does come up about Muslims and their Britishness.
Yeah.
So British Muslim identity. What does that mean to you? Does it mean anything?
As a British Muslim, you do feel the slight need that you have to represent the society you come from, the faith you believe in, but I wouldn't say that's like a pressure and that makes me act like a completely different person. So as a British Muslim, I guess I'm as any other Muslim would be, except I've got to integrate with different people rather than an all-Muslim community.
If you meet a Pakistani Muslim, if we're going to give labels, do you feel like there are differences between you and them?
But the way they interact with others is a lot more open. Their faith, as in because they both have similar faith, similar backgrounds. So you would be more open with their faith, but
I think it's more cultural changes rather than
definitely
religious. So
Not eating curry every night.
So curry is not Islamic necessarily, is it? Eating curry isn't necessarily Islamic activity.
Yeah.
Okay. So, but then people get confused between culture and religion. Do you think young people are fairly clear about, or are you fairly clear about where culture ends and where Islam begins for you?
Yes, culture is basically yourself, as in what you live. But Islam is like a religion you follow. So it's all two different things. Like for culture, you can go anywhere and just get used to other people's culture as well. You can learn their culture and live how they live as well. For instance, here it's always raining, not sunny, so it's a kind of hard. But religious is different. It's set off. I wouldn't say it's kind of laws and like background. You need to know it before. And if you want to become religious, you need to know how it all started. For instance, some Muslim these days, they just say, I'm Muslim because my parents are. But with religion, Islam, it should be learned before you choose you want to follow the paths.
What's the hardest thing for you to do as a Muslim? within your Muslim practice in this country?
The hardest thing, I would say...
That's a tough question.
I would say
sorry to check it.
Muharram.
Muharram?
Yes,
Okay.
because
Oh,
as
Good
a
shout.
lot of, for instance, you get a lot of people saying, why do you whip yourself? Why do you hit yourself? Why do people cut themselves? It should be simple. It should be azadari, not more than like hitting yourself, not more of showing people going on roads.
Why do you think that's wrong? Do you think does it worry you because Western society might misinterpret it, or?
Yes, they might think it's religious, like it's violence. They wouldn't say it's peaceful. So when they think of terrorism, they say, oh, it is true, because look what they're doing to themselves, saying it's a religious thing, other than like taking it as a simple steps.
Okay, and what do you think we can do as Muslims? What other things could young Muslims do to make not only the wider community understand us better, but also for us to maybe to have a better understanding of Islam? Are there things that you guys can think of? Maybe one suggestion from all of you. The things that we could do as Muslims to create a better impression about ourselves to others, and secondly, things we can do to actually get a clearer understanding of our faith.
I guess take the initiative. Like I believe as a group of friends, we took the initiative. We weren't really afraid. We went head first and dived into it. And thankfully, I think the results kind of showed that.
I think it's the whole point of, it's the way you behave in public as well. So, and showing your akhlaq. So if you have good akhlaq, people won't judge you for your religion necessarily, but they can obviously link, say, oh, these Muslims are behaving like this and it's not like what I thought it would be. So it's really just how you portray yourself in public.
Somebody earlier said something, one of you guys, I can't remember who it was, but somebody said that there needs to be an educational, there needs to be that confidence in who you are in order to be able to project outwards. That's what's coming out. It seemed like because you know who you are and you've been to madrasas and you've got parents who perhaps are really supportive, and you're quite together about what your Islam is. When you go to the universities, actually it was yourself,
Yeah.
and you said when you get out to the universities, people start asking questions. And it's at that stage that unless you're prepared, unless you know what you are, you could get confused. You could get defensive. You could feel insecure. Perhaps you could feel like you don't belong as a result. Now, this does depend very much, then it sounds to me like the responsibility of, say, madrasas or parents or even the young people themselves to learn about who they are first, in a way, in terms of their Islamic identity, before they go out and dabble in the big bad world where you will meet all sorts of other cultures. So it does sound to me like having a solid grounding is really important. Would you agree? I mean,
Yeah, I think forming a solid base, especially for us, I think all of our parents helped significantly by putting us in the madrasa and forming that solid foundation that you need to kind of become a more confident person, and in terms of religion, the same thing. So you learn more and you get more experience. So in that way, I think that the base is the most important thing.
now bringing it back, I mean, I've gone off the track. I hadn't intended to go as far as into the depth of what young people. It's so rare that you get a chance to talk to young people, and I've been really, honoured to have you guys in and share your opinions. Hopefully it's the beginning of many more sessions we'll have with not only you but other young people on AHLEBAIT TV, because I think it's the main purpose of the channel is really to be able to engage with young people and to understand where they are. That's one of our main missions. So thank you for coming in. But on a final note, I'd like to just ask you, how do you think Muslim young people can respond to concepts like Islamophobia? We've started touching on that to some extent during our conversation, but one last effort. I mean, you've done it through this video, and that's an amazing way of being able to reach maybe potentially thousands and thousands, maybe even hundreds of thousands of people.
Inshallah.
What other ideas do you think from a young person's perspective Muslims should get involved in making sort of a response to Islamophobia?
I think similarly to what we try to do, if more and more people start, not necessarily making videos, but it could be other sources like, I don't know, posters or even...
Who is Hussein campaign?
Yeah, like the Who is Hussein campaign that's going on. It's raising awareness, that's the issue. I think. So, and then that's where the misinterpretation comes from, that it would become reduced, and if more and more people kind of raise awareness, I think that's the main thing.
Okay, a last point from everybody on this suggestion of how we can tackle Islamophobia.
Just to add to the previous point, I mean, after raising awareness, Muslims have to make sure that they should do it, and after raising awareness, not to just leave it on the side as in I've done my job. And then you have to show it to other people.
Okay.
So that's
Great. Coming back over here.
Yeah, I think it's that idea that peace cannot be kept by force, it can only be achieved with understanding. I think that's the sort of idea we want to implement with ourselves. So if we can get people, like the Host Saying campaign, like our video, just trying to get people to understand Islam, Islamic concepts, etc., so that there's no said misunderstanding, which then causes these sort of Islamophobia things to arise. So long as we can integrate more and allow people to see ourselves for who we are and eventually see Islam for what it truly is, then we can finally get out of this vice.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, cool.
Yeah, I think it's a mixture of things. It's obviously, as Daniel pointed, it's a mixture of awareness. It's a mixture of us actually doing our bit, as Fazl said, not only doing a one-off thing. We have to show other people in our akhlaq, our morals, that we are actually not only good, hopefully good Muslims, but also good human beings. And if we can change their perspective on Muslims in general, then Islam will inshallah follow.
Fantastic.
I think we could actually get non-Muslims involved as well, showing how it is to be a Muslim.
Interfaith integration.
Interfaith dialogue. Festivals?
Yeah,
food?
festivals,
Yeah.
Celebration?
I would say
Dialogue.
events such as charity, any other events which you can come in mind, which gets everyone involved, not just the Muslim community, but everyone from other communities.
Like in Madressa, we have events where we invite people from other faiths into it and have these discussions and everything, just to kind of get a feel of what our Madressa is like. So
And
that's
clear up
kind
any
of
doubts of
Just
them.
knowing each other can really help sever
Tighten
any
the links as
problems that we had between each other, any misunderstandings that existed, and it makes things so much easier.
So you were saying?
Yeah, I was just saying it, like Hamza just said, it tightens the links between different faiths as well within that community. Like in Chelmsford, I think now we know quite a few different people from different places, and then yeah, it just helps overall kind of spreading the message.
So what's your next plan? On a final note, final note.
We're going
What's
to
the
Hollywood.
next plan? What's the next project?
Next project.
Well, I'm sure one of you will dream something up, and then you're all going to get roped in, aren't you? Are you planning a sequel to A Beautiful Mind?
He wants to go to Hollywood.
Oh, it's Hollywood next, is it? Okay.
Forever Bollywood.
Yeah. Well, it's been lovely talking to you, and thank you very much for coming in,
Thank you.
and take care.